and he left his body, and he chose to leave. And so he's not here in form, but he's here in essence. And so I just want to honor that and let you know. And I say over and over again, spirit was never born and spirit never dies. We're spiritual beings. We're having a dog experience, a human experience, a you know what experience, but what we really are is spirit. And so, yes, his body is buried in the backyard, and I put a little pine tree there, but I feel his spirit so strongly with me. Not that I'm haunted by him, but he's accompanying me on this journey while I'm still here. It's so funny because I'm 77 and a half, and my twin sister, she's no longer on the planet, but the day that she died, she came to me and said, I want to be with you. And I said to her, Pat, I'm not ready to leave yet. And she says, no, I want to be with you in life. I didn't know what she meant by that. Well, she's with me all the time now, and she's the sassy little sister I grew up with. When my mother had us, we were twins, obviously, and there was only one heartbeat. They said there's probably only one going to survive. Well, when they cut my mother open, we were holding hands in the womb. And so my twin called me her womb mate. And she used to love to tell people I'm her womb mate. And and so she's with me. And I'm so grateful for that. So I'm learning to open to spirit that is still here, even though the form might not be here. It's all about love. My beloved Karen Drucker, she wrote a song about love, and I think we're going to do it. Should we do it? Start off
Sure.
Because Karen Drucker would see me at a Solomar, and my name is David, and David means beloved. And so she wrote a song called Beloved. When I look in your eyes, I see the beloved in you. And so what if we could see the beloved in one another? And so I love the fact that you're bringing a Karen Drucker song about love.
Yeah.
And we'll dedicate this to Humph.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I lost my way, when I go inside and quiet my mind, I can hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. Sing with me. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. Two more times. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. Last time. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. Last line. There is only love.
Thank you so much. This is the silent way of applauding, but if you'd like to give him a little bit of this, it's okay too. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's only love. I repeat this. Dr. Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of our teaching, said something in The Science of Mind. And I built my ministry on it. And he's speaking about it's only love. He said, divine love brings together and maintains together in harmony and balance those who belong together. So divine love brought so many of you into my life, and I'm so, so grateful for that. And pay attention. You know, when the divine love is working in your life, divine love brought Thich Nhat Hanh to me, this calligraphy that's over my head that says, I have arrived, I am home. And it was in September of the year 2000. My mother died suddenly of a heart attack in the first week of September. My teacher died a week later of a brain tumor, second week of September. Third week of September, I'm in Ascutney, Vermont, sitting at the foot of Thich Nhat Hanh. And it was a transformative moment for me. He put his hand to his heart, and I can still see him doing it. He said, all of life is a transmission. He says, there's a transmitter, there's a receiver, and there is that which is transmitted. He said, your parents do nothing less than transmit themselves to you. They live in you. And I went, holy cow. Your teachers do nothing less than transmit themselves. They live in you. In that 10-day silent retreat, I felt my mother and my teacher were with me from get-go. And now I've got to deal with Humphrey. Humphrey's still with me too, but it started off with the teachers. So notice where this transmission has taken place within your life. You know, gosh, I ran into this lovely young man at the beginning of the service, and he talked about the Gospel of Thomas. And yes, now you brought that whole thing back to me. Emerson lives in me. When I first studied Emerson in high school, oh my God, and he wrote the essay Nature. He said, what is nature but a mute gospel? That took me to pursuing a whole degree. I thought I was going to be a landscaper. No, I was a transcendentalist. I was going out into nature and having it preached to me. And so what if we receive the transmission from those who are appropriate at the time we need that transmission? I try to bring some of my my gurus that are still in I've got 9 million different books, and I pull them off the shelf because they speak to my soul. I found this big book on pugs this morning, and I had it out by the thing, and I said, no, I can't bring the book on the pugs because I never really raised him as a pug. He was just a little dog that Jody got at the pound, and he was living with my other dogs, and he was a commoner, but he had a history of being a somebody, and he never did achieve his pug nature. But he was a wonderful little pound dog, shall we say. You know, he was not whatever. Mm-hmm. So you embrace life. I'm doing this series this month. It's called Shift into Freedom. We tend to get stuck in our limited thoughts, our identities. You know, we have our president. It's his 80th birthday, I think, today. And so there's going to be a big celebration at the White House, and be that as it may. And the first week I spoke about open-hearted awareness. When we live from the open-hearted awareness, then we're no longer caught up in our judgments, our history, our plans for the future. We're in an awakened place. And, you know, the Buddha consciousness is this awake awareness. And when it comes from the heart knows oneness, whereas the head might want to get duplicitous, right, wrong, yours, mine. I guess today is Flag Day. And I said, you know, I don't really have any flags here at the center. And then Adam, in his sweet reminder, he said, you got a lot of rainbow flags, David. Oh, I do, don't I? I wonder what that means. Well, Let those who have ears to hear and eyes to see figure it out. I've been married to my husband for 50 years. Oh, did I say that? Dare I say that? Yeah. When I was doing my twin sister's funeral, my twin's oldest daughter, Heidi, lives in Alaska. And she said to me, Uncle Scott, that's my middle name. She called me Scott. Have you met my new husband? And this tall, handsome man was standing there. We had just spread my twin's ashes. And he said, I'm a very spiritual man. I said, well, that's nice to hear. I'm a Catholic. I said, well, there's a lot of nice Catholics out there. And I just want to say one thing to you. Man shall not lie down with man. I said, oh, okay. Well, if you're going to quote that, you might want to put it in context. It said you shouldn't mix your fabrics, eat shellfish, and if your wife or daughter displease you, you can kill them. Oh, you're one of them, aren't you? I said, well, apparently I am. And then my niece from Alaska said, Uncle Scott, are you going to come visit my new husband and I up in Alaska? I said, I don't think your new husband would like me showing up with my husband, so I'll respectfully decline. But congratulations on your new marriage. And I thought, okay, have to leave it alone. You accept it for what it is, and you go on with life. So what if life gives you these little moments, not as problems, but as opportunities to speak the truth as best you can? And so today, the second talk in this shifting into freedom is saying yes. Say yes to life when life gives you an opportunity to speak the truth. And so I love speaking the truth. Pema Chodron, I taught this class for like 5 years going, my first class in January, because I was in resistance to what was happening on the planet. Anybody ever have any resistance? Well, her little class is called Welcoming the Unwelcome. And I thought, what a great way to start the year. And she comes from the Buddhist tradition. And it really helped me. You know, when you don't want something to happen and it's happening, well, could we welcome it? Could we say yes to it? And by saying yes, Virginia, then we're not in resistance. And one of the great truths that I live by, and if there's a quote you want to remember today, it's this one. All suffering, all of it, is simply a resistance to what is. So if you let go of your resistance, you're not going to suffer. And then there's that deepest acceptance. And I remember the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, which is maybe me, and hopefully the wisdom to know the difference. So when someone comes up to you and they're pretty much crazy, Adam, I get to accept them. There's crazy yet again. Oy vey. I don't talk politics with my neighbors because it usually ends up in a screaming match at me. And I don't say, whatever blows your skirt up, doll. If you want to go that way. I said to my neighbor, she's from Vietnam, and I said, I have a hard time with the ICE arrests of all these people that I know. And then she says, I'm an American citizen, and those people need to go. They're all criminals. And I said, okay, I'm going to head on home now because we're having a disagreement. Welcoming the unwelcome. How can we intentionally turn our mind around when it's feeling small? She starts off by meeting your obstacle. Whoa, how can I turn it around, Miss Kelly? And then she goes on to say, Rinpoche, her teacher, said that the way that you arouse bodhicitta is this loving consciousness that you bring to the world. The way you arouse this bodhicitta was to begin with your broken heart. Protecting ourselves from pain, our own and that of others, has never simply worked. Everybody wants to be free from their suffering, but the majority of us go about it in ways that only make things worse. So, Pema Chodron, you open to the suffering. Shielding ourselves from vulnerability of all living beings includes our own vulnerability, and it cuts us off from a full experience of life. So Jody is going whitewater rafting. I don't want you to suffer, but be careful, my darling, because I want you back here safely. He goes on to say, Pema Chodron does, she does, when we generate this bodhicitta, this loving awareness, we go against the grain of our tendencies to resist and to struggle with it. Instead of shying away, we arouse the bravery to take a direct look at ourselves and our world. And instead of being intimidated by the phenomena around us, we come to embrace all aspects of our inexhaustibly rich lives. So we're going to face it all and see how we can make a blessing. This too is good. This too is for God. And I demand to see the blessing. There's a pony in there somewhere. That's one of Raul's favorite sayings. So we can touch in with our own bodhicitta, our heart-centered awareness, by simply allowing ourselves to experience our own raw feelings without getting sucked into the thoughts and the stories that we wrap around them. So we don't have to go on and on and on, or as they say in the South, on and on and on. No, let it go. Yes, you've been hurt. You have issues. So I'm feeling lonely. I can blame myself, or I can fantasize about how nice it would be to have someone to spend time with. But I also have an opportunity to simply touch into that lonely feeling and discover that bodhicitta is right there. Yes, I'm lonely. I miss my little pug, but I feel the loving awareness just by looking into Virginia's sweet, smiling face. So what if it's all there? I don't have to get it from the little pug anymore. Discover this bodhicitta is right where you are. It's in my own vulnerable heart. And I can realize that my own loneliness is no different from the loneliness that everyone else has on the planet. So I'm trying to meet my loneliness and my bodhicitta. That's why I pulled this out, welcoming the unwelcome, because it didn't. And what do you think was on the calendar this morning? It was so right appropriate for the pug. It said, how can I practice keeping the door open to joy even when I'm in my sorrow? How can I keep the door open of joy even when I'm in my sorrow? Holy cow. And I looked at that thing 4 times and I said, I just gonna have to smile. And so Pema Chodron, I'm skipping over how she kind of unveils this. A great Tibetan practitioner who lived in the 11th and 12th century had a list of radical suggestions for getting unstuck from your ego's clinging. The first of these was reveal your hidden faults. And instead of concealing these flaws and being defensive when they get exposed, she counseled us be open to all of them. So we meet our struggle, whatever that might be, our resistance. We say yes to it, Barbara. And she goes on to say this, having the attitude that you want to grow from everything that comes to you makes it possible to use the label teacher instead of intensive jerk or little brat. So these are all teachers now, Virginia. It's not a little brat or an insensitive teacher. No, it's a teacher. And if your goal is an inner transformation, then why not see everything as something that helps you grow, Adam? Everything. However unpleasant it may seem at first, it is now our teacher. Why not see your enemies as your spiritual friends? Is this too much for anybody out there? Well, to see your enemy. And then didn't Jesus say to love your enemies and do good to those who seem to harm you? He was teaching you a spiritual practice. So it isn't so easy to do, she says. It's more like you turn the other cheek. Oh, dear. Okay, you turn the other cheek. We have to work with where we are and allow the gradual transformation to happen from within. The gradual transformation to come from within. I remember when Trey and I first moved to our house and we had a big party at the house with the church people here, and I think Raul sang. And there was a lady that was dancing around him, not his wife, and I was trying to protect him from her. But that's what happened when you have a Latin man singing at a party. And all of a sudden, the ladies that lived across the street, they told me that they were dancers because I used to be a dancer. So I got to know the ladies that lived across the street, and they danced with poles. Not quite the kind of dancer that I was, but they ended up leaving their house and moving out. And when there were like 5 of them, when they all left the house, they left their little cat Smudge, and Smudge was abandoned. So Smudge came over to the party, and she was moving from person to person to person. Trey didn't want a little cat, and he said, you Scoot, you go back across the street. No, she wouldn't take Scoot for an answer. She decided she was going to stay. Smudge moved in. She was our first of our menagerie. And Smudge became the great lover of Baby Speck, who was the little dog. When Baby Speck came into the house, another contribution of Jody, she was a puppy. And Trey said, no to puppies. We want an adult dog. Well, Baby Speck was 12 weeks old. I was up in the mountains. She just showed up. I came home with her. He nearly left me because he said, I've said that the rule is there's no puppies here. Well, there was 12-week-old Speck. And Smudge the cat went over to Speck and she hit her with one paw. She hit her with the other paw. Then she put one claw in this and one hand in that, and she chewed on her ear. Well, Speckles fell in love with Smudge, and so much so that the cat would sleep with the dog. When you say yes to it, things have a way of being. And when Baby Speck did make her transition 12 years later, Smudge never left her bed. Smudge was so in love with that little dog. You see what happens when you say yes to something that seems so unlikely? So, Pema, give us some more bodhicitta here. Turn the other cheek. We have to work with where we are and allow a gradual transformation to happen from within. And how you work with things really can transform what seems to be. Working with your inner self has the ability to transform your outer world. We're always working on ourselves. It never ends. And isn't that nice to know that this is the day the Lord has made? Could I rejoice and be glad in it? Even when stuff happens, and stuff does happen. But what becomes increasingly clear, says Pema Chodron, is that your inner work has a profound effect on how you perceive this outer world. And this is why we should pay attention to how we label things. I have a wonderful little label that I use. I say, this too is good, and this too is for God, and I demand to see the blessing. That was Hildegard of Bingen. I stole it from her. So when something happens and it doesn't seem like I want it to happen, I can say this too is good, and this too is for God, and I demand to see the blessing. Did I get one little piece at the end? Yeah, the very end. Pema Chodron. This whole book's underlined. She says, instead of seeing it as a futile or depressing fact in your life, we can see the limitless of a job ahead of us as the source of continual inspiration, Anastasia. It's a continual inspiration. An endless opportunity for our precious bodhicitta to grow and flourish more and more and more. You know, we don't get to some place and we're stuck. No, we continue to unfold and emerge. And that's what she's saying. So these days, many of us can feel anxiety and gloom when we look around or read the news. And this is natural and understandable. But at the same time, it's important to find ways of cultivating optimism. You know, I used to live in Maine, and I love what's happening up in Maine. You know, this new way of defending the rights of the Mainers. And yes, it's controversial, but it's kind of a conversation that I would always like to get into, because the man is that he was a lobster fisherman. And, you know, he's not what, and then Susan Collins, I've met actually Susan Collins. She's getting very rich on the stock market. So he took on Susan Collins. It's, you know, and Mainers, oh God. Although many people engage in a continual stream of positive actions, many others act habitually out of confusion, fear, and self-interest. Some are planting mostly positive seeds for our future, and some mostly negative and ghastly seeds, but they're planting both, and we don't really know what all this will add up to. So if our idea of being optimistic is to think and speak in a naively positive way about the future, what it will bring, that may lead to a lot of discouragement when we see how things are actually unfolding. So she's not telling you to go into denial, but face it, there's always going to be people that are on the different side of the equation. You know, when I went to get my, have my heart evaluated at the heart center, you know, because I've had a heart attack, this young lady said I was such a nice person, and she wanted to know what I did for a living. And I told her that I was a minister. And she said, are you a Christian minister? And I said, well, you know, we don't have Jesus as our personal savior here. And then she said to me in such a loving sort of way, you know, you're going to burn in hell, don't you? And I just said, you know, Jesus would never have said that to me, but thank you for giving me my first stress test. And I said yes to it, you know, and they still do think that way. So many of people that don't fit into the mold are we don't even have hell. That's something we don't have here at the Center for Spiritual Living. Hell is a state of consciousness, isn't it, Judy Graff? It's not a destination that we throw people into and tell them to burn, baby, burn. No, we don't have that. So Pema Chodron, at the end of this lovely book, we can begin to prepare for our future by asking ourselves a few simple questions. Thomas, what will I do and how will I be when unwanted events occur? Bring it on, baby. Will I be able to maintain a steady mind and a kind heart that can accommodate whatever pain may arise and therefore benefit myself and society rather than be a hindrance? So when stuff happens, Michael, we face it. We don't run away from it anymore. This too is good. This too is for God, and I demand to see the blessing. At the very end of the book, she says, and when our mind wanders off, you can say to yourself, I'm just thinking. You know, that's what the mind does. It wants to think. Maybe there's a plan that I need to have for the future. Maybe there's something in the past. And that's what the mind does. But we are the awareness behind the mind. I like to use a little phrase for me, go into the balcony and be aware of what the mind is doing. Mind of mine, where are you going? And he says, And whatever they are, without judgment or harshness, simply label this as thinking. And do that with honesty and gentleness. So when your mind wants to run away with a thought pattern, Sylvia, it's just thinking. It's doing what it needs to do. And so you touch on the breath within yourself and see it as light. Ooh, takes you to that simple ringing of the bell, exercising the in-breath and the out-breath. And she tells you in her Buddhist sort of way, see the breath as light. So we're the awareness of the thought patterns. We're the light. When I look into Virginia's eyes, I just see light there. There's not a whole lot of thought going on there. That's a compliment, darling. You're opening, you're letting the breath mix with that space within your consciousness, and you're letting breath just go out into space, and you're saying light. So she ends this lovely little book by saying, so be gentle with yourself. Use the labeling part of these techniques as an opportunity to develop softness and compassion within yourself. You just say thinking. That's what the mind does. I'm just thinking. Anything that comes up is okay in the arena of your meditation. The point is, you can see it honestly and ultimately make friends with it. I'm not in resistance. I'm not having a battle within my brain, Babette. I'm seeing it. And so by knowing yourself, you're coming to know humanness altogether. We're human beings. We're having a spiritual experience. Label it thinking. Notice your tone of voice. Let it be a compassionate and gentle and humorous way of saying it, Michael. You know, when he heard about Humphrey being dead, he said his dog was holding his breath, and he started to think, oh no, Herman's doing this. And you know how the mind can run away with a fearful thought. Then you'll be changing old stuck patterns that you're ashamed of also in the human race. You'll have compassion for others, and it starts with yourself by being kind with yourself. So her whole intention is to see that we're all connected. We all have thought patterns that can disturb us, but by saying yes to them instead of running away from them, we can transform them. Be ye healed by the renewing of your mind. And that's Buddhism. Now, you don't have to go to the ashram and do all that work. No, you just come here one Sunday, and she says, be kind to yourself. Notice when it's thought patterns, and you don't let the thoughts run your life. So I went to Jeff Foster. This young man, he was there when I had the heart attack, and I went to Colorado, and he was the presenter at this retreat. And he had so much that went wrong with his life. I mean, he was on death's door, but he wrote a book called The Deepest Acceptance. He says it was by accepting that, saying yes to that I could transform my life. And so this is his little book on meditation. And I just wanted to give you a taste of his soul about saying yes with an open-hearted awareness to step out of whatever it is that might be challenging you. And he speaks to my soul. So here's Jeff Foster. Love's deepest commitment. Let's commit to presence itself, the presence of divine love. Let's commit to meeting in the fire of today. To knowing each other and letting ourselves be known. And by walking this path of healing wherever it's going to take us. So we're meeting in this space called life, and we're saying yes to it. This is the day the Lord has made, and I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. And he says, to telling the truth to ourselves and telling the truth to one another, to live from that beautiful place. So here's Jeff Foster. Our desires wax and wane. Our dreams are born and then they die in the next moment. He said, let's not commit to a form of love today. The forms are always shifting like the tides. Let's make a deeper commitment, one that cannot be broken or lost. Let's make a commitment to love itself, to the mystery of love. Boy, then you don't get stuck. It has to look this way or that way. No. To presence itself, to meeting in the here and now, and to bringing and showing all of ourselves. This is the moment, Virginia, the Lord has made. Let me rejoice and be glad in this moment. To telling the truth today, knowing that our truth may change tomorrow. Isn't it nice to know that we can evolve? I've watched so many of you evolve at this center in a beautiful sort of way. Listening to one another, bowing before each other's experience, even if our hearts are broken and tender, even if we trigger the deepest pain in one another, the most profound disappointment, or the strongest urges and longings. Let us commit to meeting our own pain and not running away from it. Meeting our own pain and not running away from it. And that's the only way we'll ever heal it, is by meeting it. He goes on to say this, love is a field, It's not a form. The field of love. Let us commit to that field of love. I was so proud that when Humphrey left on Monday morning, both Adam and Jody were the first ones over. It was barely dawn. He was lying out on the back patio, and Adam came with his shovel, and we went and we found a place to bury him, and Jody came and gave some love, and we met that moment. And we need each other to walk each other home. So let us commit to this field of love, remembering that the field is there in every moment of our precious days here on planet Earth, and devote ourselves to that field, and in that find an eternal now. Ooh, an eternal now. Eternally now. Barbara Rowland said that Humphrey's with her little dog, Minnie Pearl. If we are honest, we really do not know. And what if not knowing could be our home? We don't have to know. When our eyes are open, when we are awake, we live very close to life and very close to death. Oops, did he say death? Very close to insecurity and very close to loss. But this is where we find such great aliveness on the edge of life itself, where everything is always new, and where we are constantly surprised by ourselves and by each other. We're all on that threshold. This is the moment the Lord has made, and it could go in the next moment, but we're here together. So thank you, Jeff, for reminding us that death is a part of life, and we're going to experience it on this journey. And lastly, Mark Nepo, he wrote this book, The Only Life We're Given, and he talks about, he's my age, he's struggled with cancer several times. He was at his dad's deathbed, and on this journey, by saying yes to his cancer, to his father's passing, he found it was transformative into freeing himself. So I just wanted to give you just a taste of him, because he speaks to my soul really deeply. The one life that we're given, he said, as we start out, we're preoccupied with finding our way, with discovering who we are, and with defining ourselves by contrast with everything around us. We try to set ourselves apart by creating something out of nothing, by outreaching and outracing others. But sooner or later, obstacles throw us off course, and the first versions of our life plans, always dear and precious, become broken. Anybody have their plans fall away, and then you have to refigure it out? Then we are sent into a passage of not knowing. We're unsure where we're going to go and what we're going to do. Less certain, we're challenged to inquire into a larger view of life itself that includes us, but is not defined by us. A greater sense of life that is bigger than who you thought you were. This is the last thing I ever thought I would have done, was be a minister here. And I said, anybody, anywhere but Alabama. Well, look at me. I've been in Alabama for 37 years. So obviously I don't have a clue. At this point, we're ready to discover who we are again and again and again. And he said, a journey begins in which we experience life rather than dreaming how we can escape from that life. We start to invest in who we are and all our care into where we are, and slowly we become one with everything that we encounter. You know, I used to teach The Artist's Way every summer here by Julia Cameron, and it's interesting, Anastasia did the same thing. And through that simple book, she would have you find the artist within you, and you'd have an artist date. And I needed to do that for years so that I could go back to discovering who is my soul. So she goes on to say, in time, the heart works its way into the presence of grace by showing up completely, no matter what the circumstances of our life is. So this incredible life will show up when you need it the most. Thomas knows what I'm talking about. That's when we met. And he says, we learn that meeting life with an open heart is how we can feel where everything then is really joined. Our call then is to let our soul and the world in, to let it all in, Virginia. Where soul and world touch, it sparks aliveness. And when our soul expresses itself in the world, our aliveness shows up. And we begin to do our part in sustaining a universe that keeps unfolding again and again. I've watched you keep unfolding, and now your hair is getting long. What's happening there? And when the soul expresses itself, we begin to experience an enlivened arc of grace itself, in which we feel the force of life that runs through everything. So we're being called into something much bigger than the local self. Anything that moves us to carry our soul out into the world is a catalyst for grace. We're being guided out there, And it's helping us, Anastasia. It's doing you. And he says, in this way, love, friendship, creativity, pain, and loss are agents of grace itself, as are surprise, beauty, grief, and wonder. So, like it or not, we're opened by the hard, sweet journey of being a human until we're sparked and worn into the gateway for the life force itself. Something is happening, it's breaking everything away, and then we're launched into the final place at the very end of the book. He ends up with this, we end up cultivating wonder. I don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere. We're all here by a simple thread, but it's a very strong, eternal thread. Ooh. Life is held together by this magnificent, unseeable thread. Boy, doesn't that just cultivate a little thread of curiosity? This unseeable thread that is behind our evolution, our unfoldment. He goes on to say, and our challenge is not to question why this is so, but to find the thread and then hold on to it. Ooh, that's a lovely meditation, Miss Virginia. Our challenge is not to choose between the fragility and the strength of life, but rather to cultivate a sense of wonder by holding both of these in our hearts. Life is fragile, and yet it's unbreakable. We teeter and we soar, often at the same times. Wonder helps us find the indestructible part of this thread. You know, I'm still holding on to that thread of joy amidst the sorrow of losing my little pug. When my father was dying, he says, I was alone with him in the hospital room, and I found myself feeding him applesauce. And in the rare quiet of that January afternoon, wonder began to fill the room, and I began to cry softly. There seemed to be a glow that was surrounding both of us. And he said, in this moment of tenderness, all of life opened to me. I realized that he wasn't going to die. Yes, his body was dying, but he was having a transcendent experience with his father. He says, my sadness had given way to care, which had given way to a sense of wonder. Boy, Humphrey's last meal, when I came home last Sunday, he couldn't stand at his bowl. So I put him in his little bed and I put his bowl in the bed with him. And he started to eat his food, but he couldn't even hold his head up. So his head went on its side in his bowl. He couldn't finish his last meal. And so I carried him upstairs and I lay him in the bed. And wonder is the rush of life, saturating us with a sense of aliveness. The way a sudden rain may make us small, the way a sudden wind can open our face. And while wonder can surprise us, our daily work is to cultivate wonder in ourselves and within each other. Yet we only have a few seconds to love the wonder out of those before us, or they will swallow it up. You know, we don't have a whole lot longer on the planet, so could we savor the moments that we have? This is the very end of the book. Wonder will help our soul awaken and discover where its foundation touches the foundation of all things. We're all in this together. Wonder doesn't just appear as a function of peace or joy or things draped in the light. No, wonder is a matter of depth and not mood. There's a depth to this wonder that's always there. And that day with my father, I learned that there was a presence that is awaiting beneath the chatter and the pain, and it can eliminate so much pain. When tired, we splash water on our face. And if you find me half-hearted, please splash some wonder on my face. And then his last little statement is, our challenge is not to choose between the fragility and strength of life, but to cultivate a sense of wonder by holding both of these in our hearts, by holding wonder in our hearts, and say yes to it. So should we ring the bell and do a little closing meditation and then we'll sing a song? Do you want to give me a little bit of that soft music? Oh, let's do a little soft music and Jody will do a collection and then we'll do that. I'm trying to remember, this is my job. If you have anything that you want to share with the center. Thank you for supporting us. The first thing I do every Sunday is write my tithe check. Oh, yes. Okay. We'll let Jody take us back into that sacred place to say yes to the mindfulness bell. It's like a friend. Notice the silence that is waiting for your attention just by the simple ringing of a bell. The silence is underneath all thought. And so past thoughts, they just dissolve. Future thoughts about someday when I'll, they don't have any foundation. And when thought doesn't have any place to put down its roots, well, then we fall into awareness. And it is said that awareness is the Lord of everything. And so we rest as awareness itself. We share the same awareness. We are aware of the breath breathing in. And we are aware of the breath exhaling through us. The one breath from the one life. Jesus said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. And he says, the kingdom of heaven lies within you. And so we let that silent place be the kingdom of heaven within us. And when we seek that quiet place, he said, everything will be added unto you. And so instead of thinking, what does that mean? We rest in that beautiful question by finding this consciousness of heaven within. Everything is added. Happiness, peace, wonder, joy, acceptance. And so life becomes a simple practice of breathing in and breathing out. And awareness flowers in that silent field of consciousness that we all share. And then we hear that beautiful affirmation, this is the day the Lord has made. Could I rejoice and be glad in it? And so we take solace in this day of coming together as one life, meeting the moment again with that beautiful soft music that Bob played, reminding us to be here now. Ram Dass wrote his first book called Be Here Now. And at the end of his life, his last book was called Be Love Now. And so we open to that field of love. I invite you to, in your mind's eye, see someone you deeply love. I'm seeing my little pugster and feel that he didn't take the love. He left the love behind. And there's so much love in this congregation. I look in the faces of so many people and I feel that love, a love that was never born and a love that will never die. And I rest as that love, in that silence, in that peace, and in that joy. Even amidst the sorrow, I have found the joie de vivre, the joy of life. So I take a deep inhalation, give a sigh for the divine. One more deep integrating breath. And I'm going to invite you to stand up and we're going to make a circle. Oh, Kelly's going to help.